Thank you for having me. It's great to be a part of the Alberta Equestrian community. Every time I've been out to Alberta, I really enjoy my time there, and it's just a great group of people. So thanks for having me. So I wrote a few notes down, so if you see me looking off to the side, it's just because I have to remember all my notes of what I wanted to say today. And so Erin or Hillary, if you guys don't mind asking the questions, because I don't have the questions in front of me, I just have my notes.
No problem at all. The first question today is, who is your biggest influencer in your riding career?
So when I was thinking about this question, I don't have one, and I have many, and I have many different influencers at different times in my life and different times in my career. So I thought I could talk a little bit about that. Like when I first started out with riding, the person who actually encouraged me to become a professional rider and to coach and to be a team rider was Chris Boylan. And she was a huge part of my life for many, many years. And she said, you know, Belinda, when I was over there with her for 2 years training and as a working student, and I came home in 1996, and she said, what are you going to do with your life? Like, what are you doing when you're going home? And I said, I don't know, I'm going to get a real job. And she encouraged me to teach. Like, I never really thought about riding or being a professional rider. And she encouraged me to teach. And she said, you've learned so much, and Canada needs knowledge, and go out there and share your knowledge. So she was a big influencer for me at that time. And I don't know if I would have done that without her encouragement to teach and be a big part of the riding community. So she was definitely one. I also have influencers that aren't necessarily in the sport of equestrian. I love watching athletes in other sports, and I love watching top athletes in other sports, and I like to see how they compete, what their training is, what kind of people they are. And one for me is Roger Federer. I think he's just an incredible athlete. A guy that in the tennis world is a little bit old now, and he's still out there doing very well. He's been a class act. I see him always just performing, like honing his skills, I guess, and to become better. And someone like that I really admire. And I admire how he handles himself on the court, how he handles himself in his sport. And one thing I have to say about him that I quite like is his love for tennis. And I think about that with riding. Like I'm in this because of my love for horses and my love for dressage. So he's a guy that I often love watching and look up to as well. A couple of other people in my life, not my life, I don't know this person personally, maybe you guys do, but is people like Oprah Winfrey. Like she inspires me in my career as well and in my daily life. You know, she's someone who didn't come from an easy background. She had a tough upbringing and turned herself into this incredible person that now spends most of her time giving back and helping others to become better people. And I think that's really admirable. So I often think about that at my stage of my career is something that brings me a lot of joy, is to give back and to appreciate what I've done and be able to support and give back to that. So I look at someone like Oprah, who does that all the time, and she certainly doesn't need to, but she does, and that's someone I also admire and influences me to become a better person. I also have a couple people in the equestrian world that I think are incredible. Eric Lamaze and what he did with Hickstead, and he's really, what a rider. So he's another one I look up to and I think about, and him earning that gold medal in Beijing, and that's impressive. Isabelle Vert, I mean, who cannot look up to her? I mean, it's incredible watching an athlete that has 3 horses in the top 10 in the world, and Isabelle's a really nice person, and it's nice for me to see that, because that's one thing that's important to me in my career, is just always stay humble and always stay kind and true to yourself, no matter what happens in your life. And with her, you know, she never is arrogant, or she's just really loves her horses. I was in the same hotel with her when we were WAG in Tryon, and I know her a little bit. Like, I know her to say hi and have a small conversation, and she always talks about her horses. And she was in her stall massaging her mare, but like before competition. Like, she's just someone I think, oh, there's a real horse person. And so she's someone that definitely has influenced me too. And then I have one other person I wanted to talk about, which is I don't know if you have anyone that's close to you that influences you, but my sister has been a huge influence in my life. She is had a really, really tough time, and she has come out of her tough time and has excelled. And she owns a hair salon, and she's made a beautiful business out of it. And I think of someone who could really be at a low point in their life and can come out of that and just be an incredible mother. She's a single mother. She's an incredible mother to her girls, and then has created this business. And there's times when I think, oh, I'm having a hard day, or I might feel sorry for myself, or I feel like I need to get strength in something. And I look at her and go, look what she's done with her life and how she's turned it around and become who she's become. So there's kind of a lot of influencers for me in my life and my career so far.
Amazing. That is such a great list of people that have influenced you, and thank you for sharing that with us. Hopefully some of the people on our call today have similar people to look up to, and if not, maybe you gave them some good ideas of people that they can look at as role models. So thank you. Our next question today is, what is the biggest barrier you had to overcome to get where you are today?
Yeah, so thinking through this one, I think I had two barriers that I think there's probably more than two, but two that come to my mind as tough barriers. So as a kid, I was really an overachiever, that I had to always be I was always good, like wanted to be good at everything, or tried to be the best of everything, and always wanted to get straight A's, or wanted to just do well. And I don't think that necessarily was good for me, because what I noticed in my early days of competition was not a joy for winning something. I would actually feel more like, if I won a competition, I would feel more of a sense of relief that I had won versus joy. And I don't think that's very healthy. I had such a fear of failure that I think that created a barrier for me to become a good competitive rider. And that was, I don't know why I was the way I was, or how I developed that, but I was. And it took me a long time to work through it. And it was quite a huge moment for me when I realized that I like thought about my feelings, like, and I actually think I had someone ask me that, what do you feel when you win? And like, do you feel joy? And I didn't. I just felt relief, and that is really unhealthy. So that was huge, because for me, I don't like, you can call failure, or you can define failure as an opportunity of learning. And if you don't have opportunities of learning, you're not really going to succeed. You can't be the best you can be without having failures or disappointments or having something go wrong. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from doing things right the first time. And that was a big learning curve for me, and a big barrier and realization to overcome. And it's been really good for me now, because I enjoy all the little things that happen in life. I enjoy all the little goals that I am able to accomplish, and that and I never thought about that before. So it was always an end product. So that was a big part of one of my barriers. And changing the definition of failure was really quite huge. That's I have two definitions. I think you can have different definitions of winning. I think you have different definitions of failure. And definitions of winning could be you overcoming something small, like I want to come out of this test and I want to feel that I at least was able to enjoy moments of it. And if you are, that's a definition of success and of winning. And I have a neat story about that with my experience at the last World Equestrian Games with tattoo. And I had, if anyone asked me what was your most memorable and fulfilling accomplishment, would be my test at the World Equestrian Games with tattoo. And it's not memorable so, to most people, but it's really memorable to me. I had more success with Anton. I had medals. I won a medal with him in the Pan Am Games, and he made the Olympics and everything else, and has the highest score as a Canadian dressage horse in the Grand Prix and Grand Prix Special. And he's incredible, and I appreciate everything with him. That ride with tattoo, I had to overcome so many barriers, and he overcame those barriers that day in that class, and it was my most rewarding major games experience yet. And that's where I say there's different definitions of winning. I didn't win that day. I didn't even make the next class. Like, you have to be in the top 30, I think it is, to make the Grand Prix Special, and I was 40. I don't remember. I was 30 something or 40, but I'll remember that test and with pride and honor for my horse, because that was such a huge thing we had overcome. So, and I wouldn't have been close to understanding that when I was young and had this huge fear of failure, versus understanding that you can change those definitions. So that's one of my, that was a big long answer for my first barrier. The second barrier was really learning to believe that you can be, for me, a top rider. I had to learn that I could be a top rider. I always sort of felt, no, I'm a good rider, but to be a top rider was something that I had to overcome. I didn't believe in myself for many, many years. And even though I had even done an Olympics, but I still didn't have that belief. I worked with a sports psychologist in 2014, and he really helped me with that. He said, you need to feel it and you need to believe it, and then it's going to happen. And really, after working with him in 2014 was when my success with Anton had just skyrocketed. At that point, he was always an amazing horse, and I just had to believe in it and believe in myself. And then that was another huge barrier that I overcame. So those two are my biggest ones so far.
Amazing, thank you. And you're being so real and honest about it, so we really appreciate that. Our next question today is, what is the best part about competing for you?
So I like a lot of things about competing. I'm sort of weird in the way that I get excited when we're going to a horse show, and when we arrive there, I feel a sense of excitement. I love packing for the horse trailer. I love getting there and unpacking and having a weekend away with my horse. Like, the joy of that for me is really real, and I really love it, and I'm missing it right now. I'm missing not having that. So that's one thing. And I think another thing that I love about competing is challenging myself to how is my training going along? What do I need to improve? What is working? What is not working? There's so many of those answers that you find out at a horse show or even discover. I mean, there's so many times that I've discovered things at horse shows that I would never have learned just staying home and training. And I love that because that's the whole challenge. Like I mean, many years ago, I remember I was at a horse show with Anton, and he was in the Pre-St. George ring, and there was a ring that had collapsed, like, I don't know, the next ring, and he just lost his mind and started going sideways and freaking out. And actually, it was Devon. It was the Devon Horse Show. And I think I had a 55% in my Pre-St. George that day. And I learned that he's really afraid of applause, and he's really afraid of when people whistle. And so I ended up working him at the ringside. Like I'd stand there with him, like on the ground with him. And then when the ring would applaud, I would feed him sugar. And I had to kind of help him along the way in his career to be somewhat comfortable with applause. So that was something I would never have learned. And if I hadn't been at the horse show. And other things, just even in your training, you might go, okay, this is feeling really good at home. And then you add the extra stress or all the different environmental aspects at a horse show, and you go, oh, I got to work on X, X, and X. Even different thinking of different training methods. Oh, I need to work on some more groundwork to help this horse relax, or I need to actually work on strength and conditioning. And I love that because then I go home and I have all these goals and all these challenges that I work on for myself and my horse to improve. So that's a big part of showing for me too. Yeah, so it just inspires me. I would say it inspires me for my daily training is the horse shows.
That's great. Thank you so much. Our next question today is, how do your peers make this sport fun for you?
Oh, so this question, I think, is a little bit, there's multi aspects of it. And one of the things I think is really important is to surround yourself with a really good team or really good people around you. I mean, that can be as simple as your friend or your groom or your friend that's grooming for you, or your parents, or your children, or whatever it is I think that your team and the people that you choose to surround yourself with is like of the utmost importance. And you need to have people around you that are there for you if things don't go well, and are there for you if they do go well. So that would be my number one suggestion, I guess, in horse shows or in competing, because that's so important, because sometimes there's people out there that might not wish you well, and you definitely don't want to surround yourself with those kinds of people. But I have to say, the higher you get up in competition, the nicer people are. And I found that when you go to like global in Wellington, Florida, and you're in the Grand Prix ring and you're competing against those other top riders, they really understand how tough it is, like how tough it is to get there, how tough it is to compete in that environment. And everyone is really, really supportive. And that does make it fun. And they joke around, and you can laugh if something doesn't go well, or you can laugh that your horse did this at that time. So I think that's important, is because it is a tough sport, and we are dealing with an animal that we don't always know what they're going to do. And you want to be able to sit back and laugh and have fun with it. I had a little story this past winter at Global, and I took my a horse that I have in training. He's owned by a lady in Quebec called Linda Jodoin, and the horse's name is Fang de Lys. And he's cheeky, like fun but cheeky. And I made a lot of mistakes at this show, so I hadn't shown him for a while. And I was like, oh, he's just feeling amazing. I'm going to take him and ride the third level. He's never ridden third level, like that was the highest he's gone at this point. So I took him in the ring, and he was wild. Like, he'd never been to Global. I think I hadn't shown him in a year. And when he gets excited, he squeals like a pig. Like, he has this high pitch, like squeal. And then he puts his head between his knees and he bucks. And that's everybody did this whole show. And to this day, we laugh about it. We call it, like, we can't let the squeal come out of Fang, because then I know I'm in trouble. And I think that's also important among your peers and your friends to be able to joke at moments like that where that doesn't go so well. So yeah, like I definitely, you need to be able to, sometimes you feel sad, but you also need to be able to laugh and not worry so much when everything isn't perfect.
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's quite the neat story to hear about how tricky that one was. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to kind of shift gears a little bit and move into a little bit about what you've been actually doing to keep yourself in good physical and mental shape during this challenging time with COVID-19.
Well, I want to say firstly, I hope everyone's well and coping okay with the situation. What I try and do is make some positives out of tough situations. And with COVID, I'm not traveling anymore. So my kids are at home. They were working on, or their school was online. And so I didn't have to go get them from school. There's no appointments. We're not going to anyone's homes for social outings. So things have been really, really quiet. I am riding and now teaching. We weren't allowed to teach initially in Ontario. We were forced to shut down. And we were just talking about it earlier before the call started, but I said if I was open during the time that they declared us to be closed, I could have faced a $500,000 fine. So we were all pretty careful as stable owners to stay closed. But what I did during the time, because all of a sudden I had time, I wasn't rushing off to go here or go there, is I started to work out a little bit more. And my kids are pretty active and they love to go running. So I started running with them. And it's something I wanted to do actually for a long time. I wanted to be able to do more cross training instead of just riding. And I do yoga and I do some strengthening exercises, but to actually do a workout, like to go for a run or do they have so many of these apps now, these training apps online to do an app. I just never had time to do that. So I started doing that and I really enjoy it. And I've noticed a difference in my riding. I definitely feel stronger, and which I think is important given my age. So I have to stay fit and healthy to be able to keep riding, I hope, for many years. So that's something that's come out of COVID that I would never have had time for before. So so that's one thing I've been doing. Another thing, I actually wanted to bring this up because I think it's something really good if anyone wants to do this, is that Equestrian Canada's Am I Ready program. So it's a program where you can submit your tests online and they have a judge them. And I'm encouraging my students to do that because sometimes it's hard to feel like you have goals or what you're supposed to be doing next. So I asked them all to, so if there's 4 of my students that are interested in doing it, so I want you to pick a date where we're going to video the test and we're going to work backwards from that date and focus on what we need to do leading up to the test. And everyone's allowed to do it and it's free. And I don't know if you get a final mark, but you get comments and you get some marks. So I think that's a really great tool that we can use right now while our shows are closed anyway. So so those are some of the things I've been doing during COVID.
That's excellent, and it's really great that you got time to do some cross training. And for those of you that are interested in the program that Belinda just had mentioned from Equestrian Canada, please feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you with the details on that if that's something that you want to take advantage of too right now. So that was great that you were able to mention that. Thank you. Our next question here actually is in respect to the horse. So it says, do you have any suggestions for exercises for the horse during these slower times to keep them fit and in shape, or come back into shape for show season?
So I guess it depends on your situation. So if your horse has been, I don't know how things were in Alberta. In Ontario, the barns were closed, so many owners couldn't get out to ride their horses. So if your horse has actually been physically off, then you definitely need to take the time to get your horse fit again. And I do that slowly, actually, because it's the worst thing is to have an injury along the way and to do things too quickly. I often say the amount of time that they've had off is the amount of time it takes to get them back to the place they were before they were off. So doing that, I would, for dressage, there's so many transitions. I mean, transitions are the best thing, and what is the Grand Prix is thousands and thousands of transitions. So that helps to strengthen your horse. And I would keep the workouts short in the beginning for your horse. I wouldn't, spend a lot of time with them. I would, or not spend a lot of time training them on their back. Spend as much time as you want with them. But I would even keep it to 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes in the beginning if they've had time off. For me, I was lucky because I was able to ride, so my horses haven't had any time off. And I am basically focusing on, basically I set myself some goals. So for right now, I'm thinking that we might be able to have a horse show in August, and I always work backwards from that. So for instance, I'd like to work on some third level stuff with a couple of my young horses, and I have a new horse that I'd like to take out and see what he's like. So I'm already thinking about what I need to do to have a good performance in August. I will actually go through those third level tests beforehand, and again set times. Like I want to do it on a Friday, and then I'm going to work backwards and go, okay, what is the test, the movements I need to focus on. So I think that if you can keep goals in your mind, and let's just say things change and we can't show in August, I go, that's okay. Then I just work on the next one. The next one being, okay, let's hope maybe we can show in September or October. And if that doesn't happen, I then work backwards again. So I just keep pushing it off. But I don't actually, I think what's important is that you keep your goals, and then you can keep training, because it's so easy to kind of go, well, there's no shows, I'm just gonna do nothing. But it's also in one way a gift, because it's really great training time. And I've talked to quite a few of my peers, and they've actually said that it's just been a gift to focus on training and not have the pressure of shows. So you can often think of this time for training. And if you have a horse that is in between levels and you just want to focus on the next level higher, it's a great time to do that. And so yeah, I'm going back to exercises. I also think a lot of variety for the horses. I'd love to do things like pole work with them, or hacking, or we have a grass field. I'll sometimes ride them there. So I think some variety too to help them get fit and in shape again too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the suggestions. We're going to wrap up with our final question, just in terms of what we prepared ahead of time, and then we'll open up for our Q&A with everybody that's on the line. So our final question today is, how have you adjusted your goals given the situation around COVID-19 and the lack of access to competitions?
Well, I wouldn't say I have adjusted them. I have still maintained them for the next time I can compete. So, I mean, I keep thinking with, say, the horse I mentioned, that my squealing horse, he needs to get to competitions. But right now I'm focusing on how am I going to get him stronger, maybe even get him up a level to, so when I get to the horse show and I show him one level below what he's training, it'll feel easy for him. So I'm still, I don't think I would say I've actually adjusted them for my goals for a lot of the horses. There are a few goals that I guess are different. So I have a new horse that he's not Grand Prix yet, he's close. and he definitely would not have been ready for the Tokyo Olympics this year. And I think there's maybe 35%, 40% chance that he could be ready for next year, but I'm not sure if he'll be Olympic ready or not, but he might just be getting in the Grand Prix ring. So there I would say I would adjust my goals to say I've opened up the possibility of him being a team horse next year. I have to see how the next 10 months go with him, because he'll tell me if it's too fast or too slow, the amount of work we're doing. And I need to listen to that. But I would have, in that case, go, hey, here's an opportunity. Like maybe he will be ready for Olympics, where if Tokyo had gone on this year, for sure, he was not ready. So there's one I would have adjusted. The ones that are coming along and developing, I'm just sort of keeping them the same. Like I want to keep bringing them up each quarter, each half year, and increasing their training and giving them the time to do that. So I haven't changed a lot. It's just now not being able to go to shows that I would like to go to, and then when they do open up, then I'm just going to have to like Fang, who obviously needs to go to shows, so he's not so excited when he goes. He'll have to go to shows and do more when things do open up again.
That's excellent. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today and opening up and being very honest and raw with some of your answers to our questions. We really hope that some of our riders on the line are able to relate to some of the things that you discussed today. And it's not often we get an opportunity to connect with somebody like you and really pick your brain on that kind of thing. So we just want to say thank you so much for your time today. We are ready to start the question and answer portion of our session. I'm actually going to hand off things to Megan now to handle that. So folks, please feel free to type your questions into the chat function there or raise your hand. We do have Belinda for a little bit longer, and just knowing and working with her in the past, she's been very humble and willing to answer almost every question that's asked of her. So we'll give you guys a few minutes here just to brainstorm some things, and Megan, I'll hand off to you.
Well, awesome, thanks. All right, so we do have a question that came in. Have you seen any changes in your students' mental health now that they are coming back?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that a lot of my students really struggled when they weren't able to see their horses, and that was really hard because that's a big part of their life, and it was really hard on them. And I definitely see a big change in them that now able to ride again. So yeah, I have many different kinds of students. I have one lady who's 71 years old, and she's amazing. She's just incredible. She's out there. She rides SEI. She rides Intermediate 1. And it was really hard on her. Like, she was worried about her physical condition of being able to get back on, and she's had 2 hip replacements, and she said, I don't know how I'm going to feel, because it was 2 months for her without riding, and she was absolutely fine. Like, she was amazing when she got back on. And yeah, and my other students too, that yeah, they were, a lot of them were really frustrated and sad because they had set goals for themselves this summer that they aren't going to happen. Like, so my one student who rides Anton, she really wanted to do her first Grand Prix, and then the same thing, her not being able to ride 2 months, and now she's getting back in attack. So mental health was really hard, and I have to say I struggled with it too. Like, I just felt days that I just felt really sad, and I felt I had a lot of guilt that I felt like I couldn't let these people come and see their horses, and that was really hard too. And everyone, now that they're riding, and at least riding, and we're setting goals, like we're doing the I Am Ready program, they're great. So yeah, my students struggled, and I did too.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for your honest answer. Yeah, definitely mental health was a huge thing for many during this time, so it's nice to hear it from your perspective. So another question that came in is, learning from this situation around COVID-19, is there anything you recommend moving forward to prepare for or adjust in lesson and training plans, anticipating we may face a similar situation in the future with a second wave?
Oh, I hope we don't. I know. I don't. I guess thinking about the future, and again, this goes back to how do you prepare for and how do you maintain your goals. Like, so for me next year, Florida is always a big deal, and bringing these horses along and then getting the opportunity to train them down there. So I right now feel like I have no idea if that's going to happen. Things in the States, in my opinion, they're not good. The numbers are not good. I don't know if I'll want to go to Florida, if it'll be safe for me to go to Florida, if it'll be safe for the horses. Will we get stuck there? Will we get sick? Will I get insurance, not medical insurance? All these questions I have about next year. And I guess that all depends on the second wave, if there is a second wave or what happens in the States. So what I'm trying to do is I just, at this point, am doing my best to just be flexible and accept whatever is going to happen. So if Florida is not possible, then it's not possible. And then I'm going to think of it that I get to stay home this winter and I get to see my kids, which I miss a lot when I'm down there, and enjoy again training and enjoying the time for training. So I'm just trying to stay flexible, yet at the same time positive. And I'm still trying to set goals because I think we need to in order to stay proactive in our training and inspired in our training daily. So I'm trying to do that, but at the same time, be flexible for what does and might happen. And I'm also grateful that I am here at home in Canada with free healthcare, and I feel safe and surrounded by my family, and I hope you guys do too. So I think there's things that we need to think about that too, that I feel grateful for where I am right now too. And if there is another wave, or if things get tougher, we can all think of the same thing, that at least we live in a great country with free healthcare, and we're, in general, we're safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And hopefully we don't face a second wave, and it's always good to keep thinking forward and thinking positively.
I just want to get my hair cut.
Yeah.
I want to get my hair cut so bad.
Okay, so we do have another question that came in here. You identified that your students struggle with mental health during this time, and you also mentioned about the benefit of working with a sports psychologist. Is this something you anticipate building into your program moving forward?
Oh, yes. I mean, I have recommended sports psychologists to my students many times already in the past, and for myself too. I never really did until the team offered the opportunity to have a sports psychologist, and I actually couldn't believe the difference that they can help you. So yeah, for sure, I will continue to encourage my students to go to sports psychology. I've actually done that many times before, and it has helped them tremendously. And I will always use it for myself too. I think that we can never stop learning, and we never stop growing. And there's many people out there that can help us and along the way. And it's nothing that I'm ever ashamed of that I have used sports psychologists. They're just fantastic. And honestly, I don't think I would have had the success I had without them. So definitely, I will continue with that and encourage it and believe in it.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your honesty. So we have a few more questions that have come in here. What has been the most rewarding moment in your career?
That would have been that ride with Tattoo at WEG. Like that, he was the most difficult horse I've ever had. And when you say this, you think the cards are stacked against you. Like I think everything was stacked against us. He had so many issues, and he had so many issues along the way in his health and in his training and his psyche. And the fact that he performed, so in my opinion, which is my opinion, not everyone, I feel he did the best Grand Prix of his life at WEG. And he got a 68%. Like, it's nothing like, you know, everyone doesn't know at that level. They're not that excited about a 68, but it was, and it wasn't actually his highest score ever, but it was the moment and what the feeling he gave me in the ring and his trust in me that day in the ring. Because the day before, I couldn't get him around the ring. Like, he was like, I am not going in that stadium. There's no way I'm going in that stadium. And I had to work on it, like, just quietly and give him treats and just show him everything. Like, he was like running back out the in gate. And at WEG, you have like the entrance way, there's this big clock. And when you pass the clock, no one's allowed to help you. And so if your horse spins and wants to go back, there's no groom helping you to lead them there or anything. And he was spinning and running back the day before. And this is one thing out of many things for this horse. And he was just really, really a sensitive guy. And that he went in that day, never looked at anything and didn't have a mistake and did his best, was the most rewarding moment of my career so far.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right, so we do have, if anyone has any other questions or comments they would like to share, please enter them now. We do have one more question here, and if there's no more, we will proceed to wrap up. But the question here is, do you and your riders participate in any nutrition programs in terms of what you eat in relation to training?
No, I don't have any programs, or we don't work together on that. We do talk about nutrition. I talk about it more so personally with each of my students, but more if they want to bring it up or they have a question. I have a really variety of students too. Like, one of my students is pure vegan, so she's I'm not vegan, so I can't even help her with what are the best things to eat, but she doesn't need help. She knows it well, and she knows her diet well. One of my other students has really struggled with gluten intolerance, and so she changed her diet accordingly to help her with that. And then my other student I was mentioning, the 71-year-old, she's had like bowel surgeries, and so she has to be very careful with what she eats. But all of these students have great stamina and can do the job. So we don't really ever talk about it. I do for myself. I just try and eat healthy, and but I also don't always eat healthy either. But that I do care about my energy levels, and so I try to eat well with regards to that. But I think everything in moderation really is the key for me anyway, what works. But I don't actually have a specific program for my students.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Belinda. So it doesn't look like we have any questions here, so we will proceed to wrap up. But Belinda, do you have anything you'd like to add, or will you be willing to come back to Alberta?
I know.
And work with it.
I'm a little scared to get on an airplane. I mean, I guess at some point we will again. But I would love to come back to Alberta because I enjoyed it so much last year. And I know we were planning on it this fall, but I know no one knows, I think, what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I would love to come back. And I just want to wish everyone well. I want to wish everyone well with their horses, and to enjoy the ride. And thanks for coming on today.